I've been thinking about like right-wing messaging and like why it works, and you know the messaging of the GOP that they use to win this election. And obviously there's a blind spot on the left in terms of what it is about the messaging of the right that works for people. It's pretty well understood at this point that they've built these like vast online networks that, you know, in some cases are just matters of very popular figures like Joe Rogan that have huge audiences, so they can kind of, you know, espouse a lot of right-wing rhetoric while having sort of a relative cover of being non-political. But then you also have stuff like Elon Musk's project with Twitter, or what Facebook was doing during the 2016 election, where you have sort of a more insidious form of like micro-targeted messaging that's used to kind of radicalize people and be as incisive as possible and try to like kind of bring out the worst in people, because if you can bring out the urges of hatred or urges of sort of, you know, defending yourself against the evil, you know, immigrant takeover, then that will sort of inspire people to get out and vote and to partake in other actions for the right wing, like January 6th. And so you've got like a combination of, you know, guys who espouse a certain kind of rhetoric, not only guys, but mostly guys, and this sort of machine aspect of it, where you have bots online, you've got sort of manufactured discourse, and you've also got these methods of researching rhetoric and researching different forms of messaging that will create those reactions that they're looking for in their audience. And so it's just interesting to me how, if you really look at it with the Republican Party, it seems like they thought they were going to be destroyed by the time when they first nominated Trump in 2016. They thought there were some Republicans like Lindsey Graham, who is one of Trump's biggest bootlickers now. They thought at the time that nominating Trump would be the end of the party, and they had good reason to think that, right? But it turns out that the GOP is more powerful now maybe than they've ever been, certainly in recent history, in the last 30 years or so. They've never been not just in a position politically to do as many of the things as they want to do, but even like way beyond, like, you know, most of them didn't ever think that they were going to get Roe versus Wade overturned. And that was a specific kind of politics on the part of Donald Trump, a willingness to stack the court and possibly coerce certain justices into retiring so that he could create a conservative majority on the court. And it's interesting how the GOP went from basically being in the throes of, in the jaws of death, to now being in a position where they are culturally more powerful than they've ever been, right? It feels incredibly daunting to sort of be up against the level of misinformation and the level to which people are really attached to these narratives that they've been delivered from the right. An example, I put up a video talking about how Trump is going to deploy the military on U.S. soil as part of his mass deportation scheme. He wants to use the military in America to round up immigrants and deport them. So on its face, that's terrifying. That's a horrifying thing for any president to want to do. The idea of the U.S. military being deployed on U.S. soil is outwardly horrifying. But the response to this video that I posted, I got people not only saying that's good, but saying specifically, thanks Biden for creating this mess. The only reason these people are here in the first place, meaning immigrants or illegal immigrants, but really just immigrants in general. The only reason these people are here in the first place is to create illegal votes for corrupt Democrats. So this is a person saying they're recognizing that it's bad, that the military is being deployed on U.S. soil. Not that this is happening yet, and not that it's going to happen. There's a lot of things that Trump is going to have a very easy time doing as president. I don't think that's one of them. I think deploying the military on U.S. soil is going to be hard for him to do. If he succeeds in purging his generals and kind of, I don't think he'll have as easy of a time establishing cronies in the military the way he is establishing cronies in the rest of the federal government. But we'll see. But regardless, this person was not only recognizing that it's bad that the military be deployed on American soil, but they were removing Trump from responsibility. So they're not saying it's bad for Trump to do that. They're saying it's bad that Biden made Trump have to do that, right? And so this is where you see the attachment to these narratives, which are a lie. I mean, there's not, even if Democrats were bringing in all these immigrants for some kind of electoral purpose, right? And the idea being like, oh, there's no voter ID laws, so that means all these illegal immigrants can vote. That's bullshit. You have to be registered to vote. You have to be a citizen. So the idea that there are illegal immigrants in America voting for Democrats, first of all, it's racist to think that people coming over here are going to automatically vote for Democrats. And that's not what we saw in the evidence of this last election. You know, immigrant communities broke for Trump in pretty significant numbers in this election. Not the majority in all cases, but in some cases, the majority of certain immigrant communities went for Trump. And so, you know, this idea that Democrats are bringing immigrants into America to vote for them purposely and illegally is a lie. But people are very attached to this narrative because they've been fed a steady supply of misinformation to that effect for years at this point, many years. And that's through these different vectors that I was talking about, whether it's Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, you know, or Tucker Carlson espousing that exact conspiracy theory very credulously, or some of these more sort of insidious forms of propaganda where it's like targeted ads, you know, targeted bot campaigns designed to sort of create an impression of public opinion, which, by the way, even these comments that I'm talking about on a video that I'm posting could be the same thing. Who knows if these are real people, but it seems like they are. And, you know, enough people voted for Trump in this past election that I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of people who not only support Trump as a personality, but they support some of these scarier things that he wants to do. And so what's interesting to me is that what I think has made the Republican Party so much more powerful is their full embracing of lies, right? Because that's really the Trump brand of politics, is just relentless, shameless lies. And the automatic response to this is always, oh, yes, all politicians lie, you know. But that comparison is moot. Yes, all politicians lie. It's part of the job. It's part of why Americans in general don't trust politics or politicians. But Donald Trump is a different kind of liar. Donald Trump is a pathological liar. He's an insane liar. Most of the things that he says are lies. And he lies with a certain abandon that, you know, kind of boggles the mind. And it's one of the things that frustrates people who hate Trump the most about people who like Trump. It's like, how can you be so attached to somebody who's clearly lying to you all the time? But it seems like that pattern of lying and that decision in terms of messaging to lie has, you know, made the GOP more powerful, potentially more powerful than they've ever been. When you look at what Trump is going to attempt to do with his presidential power, there's never been a time in history, to my knowledge, except maybe if you go way back, like 100 years or more, there's never been a time where Republicans are poised to have quite so much power in America. And it seems like the lies, the politics of lying, has been what has empowered them to do so. You go back to Mitt Romney or John McCain, or even George Bush. I mean, with George Bush, you had the whole debacle of sort of lying our way into Iraq. But even that was a high-level campaign. It was risky, right? And it's different from what we're seeing now, where you just have lies and lies and lies. These people go on TV and lie every second of the day about everything, about things that don't matter, about things that do matter. It's all lies. And, you know, that wasn't necessarily the politics of the party not that long ago. You go back 12 years or whatever, and that just wasn't what the GOP was doing. I mean, again, they were always lying to an extent. I would say they probably always lied more than Democrats lied, but that's where you get into territory where it's like, well, they're all lying. They all lie about what they're going to do when they get into office, et cetera, et cetera. Obama told lies about what he was going to do in office, you know. But ever since Republicans sort of embraced the Trumpian method of just simply relentlessly lying to your audience, to your own base, they have become unthinkably powerful. So it just causes me to wonder, like, what exactly are people getting out of that? And at what point does the other shoe drop where people realize they've been lied to? And it seems to me, and to most people who've been following Trump and politics over the last several years, that point just won't come, that there's no bottom to this sycophantic support of Donald Trump, and that he will continue to be powerful and have this sort of unlimited support from his base as long as he continues to lie to them. As long as he comes up with some lie for whatever the criticism may be, then people are always going to go for that rather than going against Trump. And we're going to see that when it comes to, these promises to bring inflation down, and yet the way we're going to do that is with tariffs, which are going to increase prices, or even these mass deportations, which really aren't there's really no benefit to doing that other than racism. The only reason that you would do that, the only reason you'd think it could benefit the nation is if you want to see less brown people in the nation, because that is also going to hurt inflation. It's going to very much overtly hurt the economy, because these immigrants are a huge part of our economy, whether they're documented or not. And it's just another thing that's going to bring prices up, and it's going to make quality of life in America worse, because we need these people. They're part of the fabric of our society. And so, I think it's fascinating to me that people are still on this Trump train. And I wonder if things are going to get bad enough during this next term that some people are going to start to feel lied to, right? Like, is there a point where the lies are brazen enough that people start to recognize? I think the mass deportations are going to go a long way in terms of that, in terms of making people feel like this isn't what I voted for, even though it very much is what they voted for. And in a lot of cases, people don't really seem to know what exactly they voted for. But I think, the military rolling through the streets of America, collecting up immigrants, it's going to produce some pretty shocking images. And those images are not going to be that different from the images that we've seen in Gaza of men being rounded up, blindfolded, packed like sardines, in some cases just murdered en masse. What we're seeing over there in Gaza is kind of a test run for what we might start to see in America if Trump gets the full force of the military behind him, because you also have all of these military contractors and stuff that are going to be willing to help with this horrific project of mass deportations if they can make a buck off of it. And you see this evidenced in how gleefully the sort of military industrial complex and the private prison companies have reacted to this idea of mass deportations. They're all about it, because it's going to mean they're going to build more facilities, and they're going to, hire more people to guard those facilities. And that's all they care about. They don't care about whether this project is good for America, and they don't care how depraved it gets in terms of targeting Americans, non-Americans, whoever. All they care about is that they can provide some of the tools that'll get the job done. It also kind of reminds of the part that some American companies played in Nazi Germany by supplying steel, supplying some of the infrastructure that was used to exterminate Jews during the Holocaust, and also just to kind of create various weapons of war that Hitler and the Soviets used, as well as, ourselves in the war. So you have these capitalistic entities that are going to be willing to help, and some of the same techniques for sort of targeting and creating the most efficient methods of genocide as possible in Gaza. Some of those same techniques and same exact companies, I would imagine, and project managers are going to be taking part in Trump's project in America. And, I think it's going to be a horrific scene. I don't have a lot of hope that Trump supporters are going to, what's going to happen is they are going to, even if they become horrified with what they see, they are not going to be able to draw the connection to Trump, because somehow Trump is always able to escape accountability. I was also thinking about this in the case of COVID, where, it's incredible that people don't remember COVID as being a specific failure of the Trump administration. And, only because that is how presidents are treated in pretty much all cases. Anything that happens under any president's watch is the president's fault. If COVID had happened during Obama's term and everything went the same way, nobody would ever mention Obama's name without mentioning that 1 million Americans died under his watch during a pandemic that could have been responded to much better than it was. But yet Trump somehow, he fills the zeitgeist, he fills the public consciousness with so much lies that it allows him to escape responsibility, so that we don't even really associate Trump with COVID the way we should, considering that Trump is specifically responsible for the fact that America did not handle COVID as well as it could. I mean, Trump was going on TV every day and just spewing nonsense, just misinformation every day, and actively making it harder for his own government to respond to COVID. And we're just going to see more of that. He's setting up the stage to have just as much, if not worse, of disastrous results during the second term. And that's without even any kind of crisis happening. I mean, the fact that a crisis happens under a certain president's watch it's not really an excuse that, like, oh, this is just, who can control if COVID happened? It's just, or even if you think it was targeted, it was something that was a hoax that was made to weaken the Trump administration or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's what the president is there for, is to handle a crisis. And Trump failed to do that. And now he's just creating a federal cabinet that is going to be even more crippled than the one that we had before. And, all I can say when it comes to Trump supporters, and I know that there are some right-wing people and Trump supporters that listen to this podcast that happen to find it from time to time. And all I can say to you guys is when that happens, not if, but when things get worse under this next term, because they're going to get worse. Every single one of Trump's policies points towards the economic conditions getting worse, not better. Deregulation is going to lead to more price gouging. It's going to lead to people being more harmed by companies, more taken advantage of by companies. And you've got these super smart guys, Vivek and Elon, who are supposed to be stepping in and sort of pretending that they understand how all this government stuff works. But really, they don't. They're just there to sell you this idea that government is this big frothing machine that's there to take advantage of you. But there's actually a very delicate balance to the way that a lot of these regulations are preventing companies from just doing the most unhinged profit seeking and price gouging that they could possibly be doing. If you don't think that companies would poison you to death just so they could get all of the money out of your bank account, if they were allowed to do that by law, then you don't understand the nature of capitalism, and you don't understand the nature of the Trump administration either, the Trump's policies, because what he wants is to remove all of the guardrails and the barriers that are going to prevent companies from doing what they want to do. That's explicitly what his goal is. That's certainly what Elon Musk's goal is, because this is a guy who's in the private sector. He doesn't have any interest in making government work better. He wants government to be out of the way so companies like his can monetize whatever they want, whether it be space or AI or whatever else. So when these policies make your life worse, which they're going to, when these mass deportations start happening and you start seeing some of the horrific imagery that comes along with that, and you start seeing some of your neighbors disappear, and you start hearing some of the terrible stories. I mean, if we thought that the stories about what Trump was doing at the border during his last administration, family separations and whatnot, if we thought that was bad, they're going to basically spread that same policy throughout the entire United States. And we're going to see it everywhere. People are going to be able to ignore it if they want, but it's going to be hard to ignore. It's going to cross your radar. Prices are going to go up. Things are not going to get better in this country, at least not based on the policies that Donald Trump is proposing right now. Things are going to get worse. And for any Trump supporters out there who are listening to this, any people who are vaguely on the right, maybe you don't consider yourself a Trump supporter, but you know you're on the right and maybe you voted for him because you didn't like Kamala, whatever. All I ask of you is that when things get worse, blame Trump. Blame Trump. He's the president. He deserves it. And based on the sort of mythology that Trump supporters and the Republican Party has created around Trump, he can handle it, right? This is Teflon Don. You know, he survived the shooting, and he's the toughest guy. He can get away with anything, and they've tried to take him down this way and that way, so he can handle your criticism. So if under Trump some kind of climate disaster happens, or another pandemic, or these mass deportations go really wrong, and lots of people end up getting killed over it, all I can say is blame the person in charge. Don't change your perspective to, oh, this is Biden's fault, this is Kamala's fault, actually this is the Jewish space lasers, or this is China's fault. Blame Trump. That's the only way that whatever happens during this presidency and into the future beyond, that's the only way you're going to be able to maintain your sanity. Because continuing to do mental gymnastics to remove Trump from responsibility for what he has done, what he is going to do, what he plans to do, is only going to drive you more insane. And as things get dark in this country over the next 4 years, which they're going to, there's going to be a lot of retribution. You know, if you thought that Merrick Garland weekly putting up a special counsel to charge Trump in like the last year of the Biden administration, so that special counsel didn't even have time to run its course before Donald Trump was elected again, if you thought that was weaponization of the Justice Department, just wait and see what Trump does. Just wait and see the reason that he's trying to put a guy like Matt Gaetz in the Department of Justice. If you want to know what weaponizing that department looks like, and I know you do, I know you feel that Trump has been targeted and lawfare has been used against him, and so now he has the right to retributively use the Department of Justice against his enemies. And he's going to. And things are going to get dark. And all I ask is that when it affects you, when it affects your bottom line to the point that you can't ignore anymore, Don't point the finger in some other direction. Don't allow him to misdirect you away from his own responsibility, which is what he's going to do. He's an expert at doing it. Blame Trump.